Greetings and welcome. Welcome to episode number 2 of Adult Conversations with Cynda, Family and Friends. This series is dedicated to foster thought provoking dialogue from diverse perspectives. Of course, our special guest host is Cynda Williams, who is an actress, author, and influencer who will be joined by family and friends. And we have a content creator and maybe another in the second portion who will be speaking as well. Tonight's topics will be back to school and mental health. A couple of housekeeping reminders. Please do not spam the chat, and that's just repetitive emojis or the same thing over and over because it'll be a distraction to the host and the panel members and the chat. And if you have any questions or comments, I will be moderating and checking to see, and if time permits, I will shoot it to the panel and they can answer if you have any comments or questions. So, without further delay, I present to you Miss Cynda Williams.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be back with you all, and I am very blessed to also have my family and some friends joining me tonight. Thank you to Doe Eyes for this platform. I really appreciate all that you do. Um, First, I'd like to introduce. You guys may not be in the grid that I'm seeing, but I'm going to invite you as I see you. I have with me Dr. Edward Baker, who is a friend, a new friend to me, but a brilliant, brilliant man. I'm going to let everybody speak a little bit about who they are before we dive into the subject at hand. And next, we have my sister and someone that I am a huge fan of, Sadaka Rose Williams. And she bad, y'all. And I can't wait to hear what she has to say about everything tonight. And then I have a new friend, King BJ, who I've just had the pleasure of meeting. And I really look forward to his brilliance. I've heard a lot about him. And then we have my mentor, my first mentor, and um, friend and uncle, James Williams. Um, these are all brilliant people, so we're going to have fun talking tonight. So, right quick, Dr. Edward Baker, tell us a little bit about yourself so they know who you are.
Well, first of all, kingdom blessings and good evening. I am a professional drummer from Chicago, Illinois. Uh, Played for several artists. I work with several artists. Ricky Dillard and New G out of Chicago. My home church, Valley Kingdom Ministries International, under Apostle H. Daniel Wilson, Pastor Beverly Joyce Wilson, now pastors Ray and Shalon Beatty. And I play and teach the heart and passion of drums. I started playing drums at the tender age of 8 years old, and I've been playing ever since. And I just love what I do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Baker. All right, Sadaka, please tell them who you are.
Peace, light, and love to everyone. Sadaka Williams. I am, you heard my sis say, I'm Cynda's sister, but I am an attorney in Chicago. I live in the south suburbs, but I also am I'm a lobbyist, practitioner, but what I'm moving and transitioning to is becoming a spiritual healer and practitioner and teacher. And it's my pleasure to be on tonight to lend all of my diversity of perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And King BJ, please tell us about yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm down here in Richmond, Virginia. That's my first part. And I'm just glad the Doe Eyes brought it me. Come, she asked me about it last month. I'm a DJ. I'm a personal trainer. I stay in nutrition. I do a lot of working out and things like that. And actually, I be around come to think about it, I be around children sometime or young guys in college and things like that. So it's very interesting. I would say this is a good topic because when I look at it and she talk about education, it's not just feeling, it's also, but we're getting to the topic more because
Mhm.
the first thing about uniform and all that, because I remember when I went to school, I had uniforms early in
Mhm.
private school, not in public. And that can get
Mhm.
a lot of animosity sometimes.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into that because I'm really curious what you think. Okay, thank you. And yes, this is a live panel. Thank you for joining us, everyone that's joining in. James Williams, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Cynda. Good to meet each and every one of you. It's a pleasure. It's my honor to be with you this evening. And I, my work, my work have extends in a lot of years, different years of doing this, that, and the other. Creatively, I've done it a lot and traveled and performed with R&B groups and et cetera and so forth. I also write plays and I do things like that as well. I'm presently writing a play, another play, of which I've been working for a couple years on. So I do that. Most of what I've done in my past years is I've worked in mental health. I worked for the National Alliance on Mental Illness and traveled and spoke for the cause of mental health in a lot of different ways. And that has been my passion and my joy. And that's part of my call as it relates to spiritual guidance, et cetera, and so forth. Careful not to mix religion and mental health together, but I do that, and I love the work, and I am still doing that more or less as a counselor, and I counsel by phone, by Zoom, and person to person. I work in Valparaiso, Indiana. I also work in South Bend, Indiana, and I also work in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Fort Wayne, where I have another home, and I work out of my own home there. And so I'm excited about possibilities and excited about working with my niece, Cynda, and what she is doing and how life and God has brought her to a place of knowledge and reconciliation and those kind of things that's going to make her even a better actor or actress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone that's continuing to join us out there. I for last time I didn't know I could look at your comments. I'm looking at your comments. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, we're going to dive right on in. We are talking about this first hour, little less, about back to school. We just started school again. Actually, where I work, sometimes I have a side gig. I work we start in mid-August. But most schools start in September. So we felt this was, since we are in September, a good time to talk a little bit about the state of education in the United States, our different thoughts, our opinions, and if we have any solutions for any problems, what those things are. So the first thing we want to talk about, because with I'm not diving into the politics too much tonight, okay? But I do want to say that part of what people are screaming about the Project 2025 is this elimination of the public school system, whatever, overhead, the people that are over it. And so a lot of people are freaking out about that because, as we know, public school is free somewhat, compared to private schools or Catholic schools or any other number kind of schools that you have to pay quite a large price for. And so if we decide to get rid of public school, many children, what would they do? That's the question. So, I know Sadika, I know you went to a private school, right? For high school. Is that true? Right.
Yes.
So you have an experience with it, and you had a wonderful experience as far as I can remember. I went to public schools, and I had so let's just dive into the one versus the other. And did anybody go to Catholic school on this with us here tonight?
No,
I actually did.
No, you did.
school, public
Believe
school.
it or not, I did.
Oh, okay, Joy.
For a little while. For a
Oh,
little while.
uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay, man. If not for that echo, we would love to have your thoughts in this.
I went to a
Um,
Seventh-day Adventist, but not a Catholic.
what's that, sir?
I went to a Catholic. I mean a Seventh-day Adventist, but not a Catholic.
Oh, wow. So you went to so what is the genre of that called? Just Seven-Day Adventist? It's not called a Christian. Is that called Christian
It's
school?
called a Christian school, but it's like they had church on Saturday, and they what is it? Oh, they had more like a vegan diet thing.
Oh, that
Wow,
sounds cool. That
wow.
I could have used that. That part. Uh, yeah, that's amazing. Oh, you got to tell us your idea. So, as I said, public schools are paid for by our governments, our districts. Each district, the schools are different based on how much money is poured into the schools, which is based on taxes. Oftentimes, that's why some some public schools are far better educational experiences than others because of the teachers' education there, the resources that they have, the classes that are available. It varies from district to district. So even all public schools aren't on the same level, depending on where you are. That's why people try to live in certain places, and they pay a lot for that because they pay higher taxes for their schools to be a better experience for their children. Um, so, does anybody have any thoughts? How about let's start with you, Dr. Baker. What are your thoughts about the the differences between the two?
Well, I could say I was in a public school, uh, and I should have said about the Catholic school. I believe Bradwell was a Catholic school on the southeast side of Chicago, but I was too young to understand about the Catholic school. So, because we moved from South Shore to a suburb called East Chicago Heights. Now it's called Fort Heights, and that was a public school. So I think we wore uniforms at Bradwell's, which is a Catholic school, and then when we got out to the south suburbs, the only uniform that we had was a gym uniform, but we wore our regular clothes. But
So,
my
so
father, God rest his.
you know the difference between, you had an experience with both. What was the difference besides the uniforms? Because we're going to come to that. Beside, when it comes to the education, what was the difference for you?
Well, because we moved from the southeast side of Chicago to the south suburbs, I don't remember what happened at the school because when we moved. My dad had a got a great job, and he wanted to move his family out of the city, and we moved to the suburbs. And when we moved to the suburbs, it was real quiet, and we went to a public school, and I was learning the suburbs from the city, and uh, so I learned a little bit about the schools in the city, but then the suburbs was kind of different. It was very different. It
Hmm.
was real different. It was real different.
So, Sadika, your experience, you have a perception, quite like I do. You had children in school, and you had your own private school experience. What, from your point of view, is the difference between the two?
Well,
besides the
it's
paycheck?
I think it's interesting because it isn't necessarily if it's just a public school, it's how much, of the taxes are feeding into the public school that's
Right.
going to enhance it. Because I live in the south suburbs in Homewood, Flossmoor, and we have a fantastic public high school, but that's because they're taxing everybody, crazy amounts of money for the school. So, they have been trying for the longest to change the way that they structure how they fund schools, and for a good reason. Because if you don't have enough taxes that are feeding into the school district, then it's just not going to be, it's not going to be good for the children. And unfortunately, it really is like the tale of two cities. I was born in Muncie, Indiana, and I would get all A's, and I still probably, if you tested me according to the state of Indiana or even the state of Illinois, I probably was testing below, even though I was getting all A's in that in the public school system, just because of the quality of education. When I went to Culver, I went there and I was a, honor roll student. But when I went to Culver, I was definitely one of, probably from a testing standard, one of the lowest, achieving students walking in because of the educational system I came out of in Muncie. Um, and so I had to work like 5 times as hard as everyone. But I committed it to myself. So I would stay up late at night, like studying hard, trying to catch up to everyone. And, I would say toward the end of my first year, I finally caught up with everyone. And then I took off from that point and graduated at the top of my class. But I had to work my butt off because, I came from a public school system, and all these other kids had been getting all these, tutors and mentors and that the quality education. And so it really does make a big difference, in my opinion.
Hmm. I know that it's hilarious because you went from Muncie, which you were learning less, into a private. Well, I went from Chicago and moved to Muncie, and I was behind because where I was in Chicago, South Side Chicago, we were barely, first of all, barely in school because there were constant strikes, which I understand because teachers have been forever undervalued and not paid properly. And so they were constantly striking. I missed school. I can't count how many months of school over the years that I lived in Chicago that I missed
Wow.
put together because they were never in school. We were never in school. And so when I moved to Indiana, talking about behind, especially when it came to math was the worst for me. I was so behind and I never ever caught up. I never caught up. You today somebody talk about math to me. I'm like, don't talk to me about math. Because it it broke my belief in myself when it came to those things because I felt I felt bad about myself because I couldn't compare to anybody else. Fortunately, our brothers who are right under me were young enough to catch up. It was just by the time we moved to Indiana, I was in high school. It was too late, and I didn't have the heart like you to delve. I just didn't care enough. I knew what
Sis,
I wanted to do.
look, everybody expected me to fail. And I was like, challenge.
Mm, yeah,
I had something motivating me.
right.
Well,
So,
I could say this, not to cut you off, Lady Cynda. Um, I had a father who, first of all, a single parent, because my mother left us when we were younger, and my dad had to sacrifice his job and come home to take care of us because he didn't want us to be in the system. So we had homework even if we didn't have homework in school. My dad, we walk into the house and there was no books in my hands, and he would say, Edward, where are your books? I said, oh no, we did our homework in school. We did our work at school, so I'm okay. I'm good. He's like, no, you're not. And he would go into his room and bring out this big blue book, and we had school at home because my dad was very strict about education. It was very important about education. He was very strict, and for my dad to come home and sacrifice to take care of his four boys because he didn't want us to be in the system. My dad's been gone 5 years now, and I really thank God for my father, Mr. Eddie Lee Baker Sr., who was a dad. And he taught us education. He taught us music. He taught us about life. He taught us about how to take care of ourselves. And I take my hat off to my dad, Mr. Eddie Lee Baker Sr.
All right.
Thank you. So, King BJ, what do you think the differences are? Do you have any experience to know? What do you think?
Yeah. Difference between private school and public school. Private school, like you say, you pay. Public school is more like a state or government curriculum, if you ask me, right? Because things I already knew in private school, it's like when I got to public school in the 10th grade, I was like, I've already learned most. It kind of made me kind of like lazy, like it made me take it for granted, like because I already knew a lot of it. And the only thing good is that you got school shopping outfits instead of in the blue khakis or brown khakis and blue whatever it was. There was a couple of them, And but otherwise it was good. Now I would say this that today's private schools. Oh, I guess it's generally what they call it, school choice or whatever. But people always send their children to different public schools and they want them to go to better school anyway. So I don't really understand. It's like you were saying, strikes, right? Teachers unions are always trying to strike or get paid or whatever it is, right? But a lot of these teachers unions also are behest at what the curriculum is. I've got a guy, he was taught, he was teaching, I think he retired because he said that he just couldn't get along with the curriculum anymore. He was like, he didn't want to feel like a robot. So I would say public schools sometimes make the teachers feel like robots. Private schools, you might have a little bit sway, but most private schools are still based on some religion or doctrine or something to that nature.
Okay.
I went to the Seventh-day Adventist thing, so it was
right, exactly. So James, you're in a different generation than us, and I know you moved a lot as being a preacher's kid.
Yeah, quite a lot.
So were you guys in the public school system, or were you? What was your? What happened with you guys?
We were always in the public school system. You're right, as you know, that my dad, United Methodist pastor, which meant that he's the itinerant pastor, which says that he traveled a lot to different churches, especially in regards to African American churches. And so he packed up his family and we moved. I think I've been to probably maybe 7 or 8 local schools,
Wow.
all the way up until I was a senior in high school, which meant that I had a diverse education relative to what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And one of the best things about that is that I learned a lot from different locations, learned a lot from different cultures, where people would typically think that we're just African American kids. There were 5 of us, but our experiences with our dad, because he was very progressive, socially minded, Sadika and Cindy's grandpa, he really spread himself really well in learning different avenues of education and what to do and how to do it in different circumstances, and he was a political person as well. We're not getting to that, but he was a political person as well, which meant that our education come from so many different kinds of sources. I loved it. I didn't love moving so much because that meant that us kids, we got to clean up the parsonages every time we move. We had the responsibility of cleaning up the parsonages, getting it ready, et cetera, and so forth. And that was really tough. But I had a real well-rounded idea dealing with people of different races, Hispanics, Caucasians, et cetera, and so forth, which gave us more things to really refer to and look toward the future as to what am I going to do and how am I going to do it. I was a creative person, and so I really leaned toward creativity. And so I took advantage of the church, and the church really was a place where I learned a lot relative to my dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that he was a big educator for me too, and that's the thing I think that we don't always think about. I do because of my experiences, but just like Dr. Baker was saying, it was his father that made sure that they were constantly being educated, and Daddy did that with us as well. He worked 3 jobs, so he wasn't able to sit there with a book with us, but he made sure we had a book. If we had homework or not, we were reading, we were doing something. We only watched the news and sports, and then our grandfather, we were literally at church 6 days a week learning something all the time, because we didn't just learn about the Bible and Christianity. We learned about other religions. We learned about politics. We learned about the world. We learned about social I don't even know what to call it, dealing with society, dealing with a community, hands-on with the community. And that is missing in so many homes and schools these days. And I'm right now in school. I'm not a teacher. I'm a substitute. That's a side gig for me when I'm not doing what I do. And so I witness what's happening, especially after COVID. COVID really took us backwards in our public schools at the very least. I don't know about the rest of them, but those children were so completely unsettled and angry and rebellious because of it. We lost a few classes of youngsters. They just passed them through, and they were not educated and ready.
Wow.
They were not educated and ready. Many of them could barely read. I remember seeing it. Many of them, they definitely didn't know anything about math and science, nor did they care, because we couldn't get them back. We couldn't pull them back, their focus. Yes, sir. Yes.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that, and I realized that there's a major teaching shortage in this country.
Yes.
Right. Now, in some schools, half of the people are substitutes. That's very interesting. You say you're a substitute.
Mm-hmm.
So but you also have a shortage of bus drivers. When I was in school, we had cafeteria cooks, so we really don't have it anymore. They keep the children packaged lunch and stuff, and the children don't even like the food, actually. It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I would say this. I have a friend of mine, actually more than one. And matter of fact, this is part of the No Child Left Behind policy, which to me, no child left behind meant everybody left behind, right? Right. But if you look at it, I will say there was one thing out of the COVID thing that did really help. Mm-hmm. People got to finally realize what was going on in schools, because they had to. They were forced to. And as I know, 3 women to 4, actually more than that, but 3 of them that I've talked to in the last year or so that have told me they homeschool anyway.
It's better. It's better, and the children are so much far. I homeschooled my daughter 1 year, and she jumped 3 grades.
Awesome.
1 year. So it someone, I think it was Erica, hi, she said, what happens to them being passed through? Um, it depends on them, I think. It depends on them because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Because like I said, for me, math was difficult and I just wasn't prepared for anything with that. But I learned enough to get by. I learned enough. I knew that I was never going to do a job. I was never going to be an accountant. I was never going to do any kind of work that had anything to do with money. But I could do enough so that I ended up having a bookkeeping job. You know what I'm saying? Because of the decisions I made. And it, who knows? All these things that happen to us, maybe not, eventually open up other doors for us because of what we lack, what we don't get. We then have to search for something different. And I believe we're in a system breaking times. Things are falling apart.
Yeah.
COVID was a big part of that. And so though they may not have that learning, which to me honestly isn't very much learning, and it's nothing, not too many things that are important to our daily lives all the time. It teaches how to test take, it teaches it teaches how to beat the clock,
Mm,
which is not always teaching what you need for life, for life, unless you're going to be a teacher or a scientist or biologist, et cetera, so forth. When do you use the majority of the classes that are pressed upon you to learn? They've taken all the practical classes out of most schools. Um, you
yes.
know, uh,
Yes.
skilled things. The way we built our middle class in the Black community was with being plumbers, being car mechanics, being all these having skills. They said, no, you got to go to school. You got to go to 4 year school. Go to college, and not everybody's a lawyer. Not everybody's a doctor.
Exactly.
We need plumbers. We need, so it took a lot of us off course with the way they've changed the school system these days. And it's all based on testing, which then the reason why the testing is important is because that determines how much money you get in the
Yes.
school. So it's just this
Yes.
vicious circle. Um,
Lady
Well,
Cinder,
yeah.
Lady
don't
Cinder,
think.
uh,
Oh,
Lady Cinder, I want to say this.
Mhm,
I worked with an organization called
mhm,
Music Net School of Music.
mhm,
This music school, what they do is we go into public schools, high schools, even colleges that don't have a music background, doesn't have music education. A lot
mhm,
of our public schools, they're either doing PE or music. It's either one or the other.
mhm.
When I was going to school, it was both. And
Right.
so we would do what is called a year-to-year contract to go into the public schools and teach music. I saw some things that I had to call my sixth, seventh, and eighth grade music teacher and say to her, it's you all made us learn music. These young people don't care if they do music, but when I would introduce them to certain music and certain reading, how to read the notes, that they were concerned about uh, Cardi B, these now young rappers and artists. They want to be like them, but in order for you to be like them, you have to learn the music. You have to learn the lyrics. You have to learn the notes. You have to learn how to play an instrument, and they could care less of how to do music. And when we were growing up, we was excited about music. That's why I'm blessed to be a professional drummer that I am, because I had hands on. These kids these days are missing that.
Yes. What were you gonna say, King?
well, it's mighty funny. He says he's a drummer because I've done events, and one time we had a band, so that's pretty cool, actually.
Hmm.
Okay.
I DJ'd a few events, and they have drummers there. You sometimes you'll play, and then they'll play you do like an instrument or whatever. But that's a whole nother thing. But I will say this: you were talking about plumbing technology. I took a
Yeah.
technology class in high school myself,
Yeah.
right? But if you realize that stuff is never gone out of style. I mean,
No.
people
Right.
still doing construction. However,
Yeah. Right. Right.
people on this panel, I'm looking at the shade, and I mean, I don't see a lot of us doing it. I see them be flaggers more now. And most of the people older in construction are older men that's probably about to retire now. A lot of
Right.
younger men, and you were talking about music, and they want to be Cardi B and et cetera, right?
Right.
But that's okay. I'm pretty sure I'm 37 years old, and most of everybody may be older than me on here. But do you remember like when you had? I think I was in 1991 or two. Had them big cassette tapes or whatever. You know them big,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
and then they started going to the CD, right?
Yes.
If you ask an 18-year-old at high school what a CD is, you might find 5 of them they may not know.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Everything is streamed,
Right.
and that's how you can get to them saying that Taylor Swift has sold more records than anybody. Well, how do you know? It's streamed, it's digital, right?
Right. Right. The digital
So,
platforms. Yes. Yes.
okay. When you go to the school, right?
Yes.
I was at somebody's house a couple of days ago, and there's a child that is 8, 6, 3, 2, and maybe 5. Guess what all 5 of them have? Tablets.
Right.
Right.
And you can talk these kids and wave at them. I actually had to hit the tablet like that to the child because they be so into the tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And what they give them in class? Tablets to learn on.
Right.
Where's pen and paper?
Right. Right. Right.
I mean, it's nice. It's nice to be able to have it, but if you got a plan and it goes out, the pen and paper, it was always
That's it. The tools, the real tools.
Right. Right. Sadaka, yes, Sadaka.
I just wanted to answer the question, which was, what happens to those children? What happens is they are far behind, and so
Yes.
they'll probably drop out of school, probably drop out of high school, and may never get their GED or high SED, and probably end up working retail jobs because they don't have the right math and reading levels to get the jobs of now, because everything is
Yes.
going AI, everything is getting automated. And like,
Yes.
even to work in a warehouse, you have to have a certain math and reading comprehension to be able to work the machines that are in the warehouses for manufacturing, because manufacturing used to be another outlet where people could actually make somewhat of a living wage, but that's not even going to be an option if they don't have the right reading and math comprehension. So we're going to see a lot of kids, even if they don't drop out or maybe they just pass through school, they're going to end up living these jobs that are not going to be able to pay for their cost of living, because the cost of living keeps on going up. And then
Yes.
the wages are just staying the same. And so you're going to see people getting burnt out working 2 to 3 jobs. And then in terms of the U.S. economy, we're going to have a big problem. That's why that's the way you hear about Musk doing all this AI and automation. They're working fast. They're trying to have as many machines as they can because they understand most of the American workforce is not at a level of comprehension that's needed for to work in most of these industries.
Right.
So if we don't change the way that we have our education system, at this point it's like liberal arts college, a 4-year degree. Is that really what you want to do? I think it might be a better idea to go to the community college for a 2 years associate where it's much cheaper, and then transfer to a 4-year college in the trade that you're actually interested to, so that you can have a career rather than going and drop all that money in a liberal arts school.
Right.
So I think that our economy definitely has to shift to what is actually happening in real time. And we have to take into account all those kids who did very much get left behind. I had to pretty much homeschool my kids during COVID. It was hard, y'all. I was working and I was the teacher, but they were getting straight A's at that time. Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
it was hard doing it, but it was possible, and I think for the most part they're doing pretty okay now, but it's definitely something that's taken a toll. But I think even before COVID, we were heading to this wall that we're heading to now, which
Agreed.
is that our educational system is wholly broken, and unless we do something quick, we're going to have a big problem as a nation.
That part, yes,
James,
yes.
James, what do you think? Mm-hmm.
What Sadika is saying is
Mm-hmm.
really, really true. As a matter of fact, here in Indiana, we have an emergency illiteracy for all the schools in Indiana, all the public schools in Indiana. And I said that because they are so far behind, as most of you all have indicated. They're so far behind, and so we're in this. It's like a state of emergency that all our kids are in an emergency situation where they have classified Indiana public schools as being illiterate.
Wow.
And,
Illiterate, the whole
and
school system, not just some of it, just the whole school system. Go ahead, Sadika.
and I was gonna say, Uncle King, it is like the wild, wild west in Indiana right now
Yeah,
because of that.
you know that.
Like the kids are they're getting access to all the guns. They changed the laws in Indiana so that 18-year-olds can legally buy guns without
Yeah,
any kind of permits or license. So all
right.
these 18-year-olds
Wow.
are buying these guns and giving them to the 12, 13, and 14-year-old kids. So rather than being in school, they're out there buying guns and then using them to shoot. And so this is like the new state that we're in. And I don't know if y'all heard, but all our schools have been a state of emergency given all the school threats for
Mhm.
active shooters. It's in
Absolutely.
Illinois and it's really bad in Indiana.
And
They
I
have
can attest to that because I taught there too.
Hmm.
And I was in Indianapolis schools, and that was all of them. In the district I'm in now, it's just one or a couple of schools. There, I went to maybe 50 schools. I was in all of the schools, and literally there was only one high school, because that's where I usually am, that there was any order. The kids seemed to be learning. There seemed to be a peaceful educational place where people could
Wow.
absorb the information. And that doesn't matter the class, because as we said, the districts, there might pour more money into the schools, right? If it's a richer district, but that does not mean it's still not broken. The wealthy schools, where the behavior, the uneasiness, the danger, the cussing out of teachers was just as bad in the highfalutin schools as it was the poorest of poor schools. It's
Hmm.
it's just the system, period, is broken. And I don't like to, this is one of the things that's important to me. Solution talk. Okay, solution talk. Can we get to the solution talk? I don't know if we're going to get to uniforms. Um, what do you guys think about what can we do to
Hmm.
not maybe personally, but as communities, changing these things?
Go back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the basics. Go back to the basics. And I want to say this. My father sacrificed for us, but I don't see none of the men now. I see more women going to the schools and making sure that the son or the daughter is doing something. The men are out there doing their whatever they're doing, and they're not in the lead role as it was back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
The women, I take my hat off to the women that are doing great, and they're underpaid, they're being disrespected. And I am for the women because they do everything.
Hmm.
And the men out here, if you hear me, if you hear Dr. Edward Baker, wake up, get back in your place. Because these young men disrespecting the young ladies, talking
Hmm.
under their clothes, back in the day, that was a no-no. You respect it. So let's go back to basics and education as well. Go back to the basics. If you go back to the basics, I guarantee you we'll be better in education.
May I ask a quick
Amen.
question, sir?
Yes.
Where do you, or from your perspective, where did this paradigm shift begin? From back to the basics until present day. And thank you.
Uh, wow. Let's see.
Can I give my opinion? When the
Yes.
drugs, when the drugs
Yeah,
started coming into the
well, yeah, yeah,
communities,
yeah.
when
Drugs and
you
and
know,
violence. Yeah, yeah,
80s, in the 80s, and when manufacturing jobs started going away, when drugs started getting poured into communities, when
yes,
guns started getting poured into communities, when men were being arrested for small petty crimes, and so they were losing their manhood, being thrown into jails, and women were thrust into a position of power that they didn't and couldn't handle on their own.
yeah, yeah,
To
yeah.
me, that's when everything started to shift. When it was like a concerted effort. I don't try to be a conspiracy theorist, but it seems very systematic to me. It
It
seems like,
also had
yeah,
it,
it
al-
was.
it also happened when the law would tell the parents you can't chastise or whoop your child,
Yeah,
or
that's what Graham said. Hey, Graham.
yeah,
Mhm.
you can't you can't discipline your child. My dad says you can call the morgue because if you disrespect me or disobedient, I'm going to deal with you, and you can call the morgue because I'm going to take you out of here.
Mhm.
That's old school,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
we're missing that. We're missing that.
definitely. I really, Cindy, I'm glad that you went to a solution that wasn't necessarily involving the educational system, because I believe, like, when people talk about violence, the
Yeah.
roots that cause violence isn't necessarily those acts itself. There are things that cause those conditions to occur. So when we're talking about a poor educational system, definitely the drugs that have been introduced to our country, and now
Yes.
all this fentanyl coming in is the newest thing that is coming
Yes.
through our borders. It's illegal, right? But come on. So we have to really get to actually addressing the underlying symptoms. So when we talk about substance use, when we talk about mass incarceration and incarceration of especially Black and brown communities, right? Of the men taking away the head of households, as you were
Yes.
mentioning, where a single mother is then left to work two jobs to
Yes.
provide for her family because they don't provide a living wage. So she's not in the home, and the child is left to fend for themselves. And so the streets become the family of that
Yes.
child. And so
Yes.
they don't have the structure for them to go to school, for them to have the homework, for that dad to say, open that book and to read. It is the breakdown of families. And that is what is occurring because the we don't have living wages, because we have substance use. We are an addicted nation right now. We are
Yes.
addicted, our children especially. And the more that the parents, I saw a comment, and I agreed with it. When there are barbecues now, the kids are at the card table around the adults who are drinking and smoking, rather than the kids being at the playground,
Right.
because our communities have normalized addiction. Alcohol, especially, has been normalized as okay, when it is very detrimental to our health, and not only our physical health but our mental health. Because our kids, when we as parents drink in front of them, we are teaching them that that's okay. And so they start drinking when they're 13, 14, because nobody is with them. And then they start doing other drugs. And before you know it, they're falling out of school and they're not keeping up with their work because of all those conditions. So until we come up with a concentrated solution, focus on all of those different things, and it's a package deal, because this should be a priority, right? We
Mhm.
won't get to the solution. And don't even start talking about how the current curriculum and the testing standards in college, none of it works. So we have to restructure all of the education. Like we should be putting money into trade schools. We should be putting employers should be putting money into those schools and for trainings to get the workforce they need.
Right. King BJ, what do you think? I see you thinking. Let me hear what you're thinking.
I think that it's imperative that what he said, because I mean we used to get beat with a switch. So I mean, hey man, that's just the way it went, right? We got beat with a switch. And actually, one of the schools I went to, they would hit us with a paddle. If you
Yes.
didn't want the paddle,
Yes.
you had to get hit on the butt, right? One or the other,
Yes.
your choice. Sometimes I took the hand because it did sting but it did hurt when you got hit on your derriere, right? But she said that the streets become the family, and I grew up with some guys, that, hey, let's face it, you had guys out there on the street hustling 10 years old, 11, 12, 13, right? Going to jail with grown men after the 94 crime bills, they say, right? So a lot of things did happen. Today, it's a little different. These kids are a little different, but they're more effeminate. Like, it's like very weird to men. And I've been seeing like a role reversal thing. I was out last week and I just had to be out. And I said, man, I've never seen, used to see maybe 1, 2 women hang together. I was at one place, I saw 5 women with each other. Then you look around, you might see 2 guys, right? So you have a societal engineering brainwash. But the only thing about it, these children aren't watching TV like our parents did. They're getting it through the social media. So they're getting them another way. They couldn't afford this off on TV as good they could have. Because some people are like, oh my God, but now you can do it on both things. Now, I wanted to say this, because you were talking about somebody talking about counseling. I've been realizing how many people now are doing what they call sports betting, right? Now, somebody put in the chat earlier, the kids can't write courses, but they know how to do FanDuel. They know how to do sports betting. They know how to do all this.
Right.
How much of this stuff is really causing a drain on people. And that's why I happen to see one day a Gambling Anonymous commercial. So nobody's fiscally responsible anymore. Let's put it like that.
Yeah,
And
this is true.
in school.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Man,
all.
okay. As always, these subject matters, there's just so much to say and so much to talk about, and we didn't even get through it. We'll come back to this on another show. I really want to talk about that uniform thing, because if I see one more booty cheek at my school with these girls, I am going to be sick. Okay. So we'll talk about that another But we're getting ready to wrap up this hour, because we do have some commercials that we want to get to before we move on to our next subject matter. And we are going to say thank you, and it was such a pleasure to have you on with us, Dr. Edward Baker. We know you are doing your thing. You got to go play some drums. So we really appreciate you. We love to have you back again. Is there
Yes.
any way that people can contact you if they want to check you out, see what you got going on?
I'm on all social media platforms. My Facebook is Edward Bam Bam Baker. I have 2 pages, Edward Baker. On IG, on my Instagram page, it's all lowercase, Bam Bam, BAMMBAMMB68. And I have a concert that I'm doing this Saturday. That's why I'm being released by Miss Lady Cynda, because I wanted to stay on here for the whole hour, but I couldn't get out of this rehearsal because I'm one of the standard drummers that's doing this concert. But you can reach me on all social media platforms, and I will look forward to anybody that wants to hire me to teach the heart and passion of music. It'd be a privilege and an honor to do so.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Thank you. And everyone else, I hope you're staying with me. I think we might bring in a couple of more voices on the second after the commercial break. Everyone that's with us, please stay with us and keep telling your friends, because this next subject matter we're going to get into the mental health issues of suicide, and that is a very serious subject that we are going to dive in on. And James Williams, I really want to hear from you on that one.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you,
righty.
Dr. Baker.
God bless. All right. God bless
You
you.
as
Take care,
well.
doctor.
All right.
Okay, we're going to
Love
go on
See you
a
later, man.
Thank you.
Take
quick
care.
break. Thank you to this knowledge-filled, experienced in every facet you can think of panel. Again, we're going to go on a quick break. When we return, King BJ, I would like for you to go ahead and promote your channel. And if you have a Cash App, please put that up as well. And when we return, we are going to delve into mental health. And I'll talk about that a little bit more after the break. But yeah, this will be brief. So if you need to take care of whatever you need to, this is a time for it. And
Thank,
we'll see you back shortly.
thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I can hear someone in the background. All right, we are back. Thank you again to everyone that has come in, those that actually liked the broadcast before it even started. Thank you all so much. If you would like to donate to this broadcast, you can go to the pin and also to the panel member, Mr. King BJ, who's probably still on break, but that's fine. His Cash App is right
I'm right
there.
here.
Okay. James Patterson, you're showing a hand. Do you have a question before we get started?
Right.
James? Oh, okay. Okay, he's just saying hi. Well, hi back to you. Okay, we're going to delve into mental health. Now, October is slated for many dates as National Depression Month, and several different aspects of mental health is recognized: anxiety, depression, many things under that umbrella. Um, Taking of one's life is something that Miss Cynda just spoke about, so we're going to touch on that. Statistics really quickly. In 2023, American Psychological Association said that 20% of teenagers have thought, contemplated taking their lives. So that's a lot. That's a lot, and that was in 2023. Um, Next is, why is this subject still taboo? Warning signs, resources, coping, and there's one thing um, I would like to get out first, and then we can get to the other. AI was spoken about earlier. I want to get the perspective of each of you and your honest perspective. Ms. Cindy and I talked about this briefly, but we all, well, I'm not going to say all, but people will wear filters or alter alter at times. I've done it here lately. I haven't gone with makeup in a while for various reasons, but there are some people that to me seem addicted to AI, and that's all you see. And my question is that a mental aspect of maybe low self-esteem or not liking how you actually look? And I'll let the panel dissect that, and I'll turn it back over to you, Miss Cynda. And thank you again to everyone. But I did want to get that out because I see it on this platform quite a bit, and I wanted your thoughts on that. Thank you.
I'll start. Thank you everyone for coming back. If someone has on a television in the background or radio or anything, if you could please turn it off or turn the sound down. Yeah, he has she has a echo when she's on. So I think I know who it might be, but he's not there, so we'll wait for him to come back. But so when it comes to the AI, the filters, I mean, AI is way more than filters. That's just one part of AI. Um, Filters, I think, can be misused. Um, there's a lot of people that they might look fine, but they like themselves better looking altered in other ways. It's cheaper than plastic surgery, I guess. And so they do use it, and so it may be some self-esteem issues with it. I know that once in a while I use a filter of natural filter because I don't want to put on makeup because I don't like wearing makeup. I wear makeup for when I'm doing movies and shows and stuff, and that is all. I right now have nothing on. I got a little bit of lips on, some lip balm, lip stuff, and nothing else. I don't have eyelashes. I just don't like wearing that stuff. So, um, yeah, she says she's talking about using AI as your avatar every single day, and they look nothing like what they put on. Yeah, there are people that do that, but it's kind of like a freedom of choice thing to me. If a person decides to put on a mask, which shoot, nearly most of social media is a mask, I think they have the right to do it, just as long as they're not um, communicating directly with people and saying, this is me, let's have a date, and then you meet them and they're, you know, a guy or something, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. That if they're misrepresenting who they are to people and it matters, then there's an issue, I think. But if they're just that's who they want to present as, that's their business, as far as I'm concerned. You can be a cartoon as far as I care. I don't really care what face or what mask you want to put on. Because I know that people are constantly putting on masks, not visually, but with their words and their pictures and their, people are presenting how they want to be perceived instead of how life might really be. And I don't share all my dirt. That's for dang gonna sure. Y'all don't know all the stuff I go through. I share a certain amount. So in my way, I mask too. I don't come on here when I've been crying all day or sick all night. That's a mask. I'm not telling you all my truth because I don't want to talk about it. This I tell you what I want you to know. And so does everyone else for the most part. And those that tell all their business, nobody cares about them. Nobody wants to hear complaining all the time or whatever. So anyway, James, what do you think? What do you think about the whole filter thing? People putting filters on all their photos and presenting that way. You got your sound off.
Oh, my bad.
No problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it's part of what's happening as it relates to mental health, as it relates to people and not being identified. We are not identified. People are not understanding who they are, what they want to do, where they want to go, et cetera, and so forth. And that's one of the things that they're doing that open up a whole cavern of mental health issues. Because if you don't know who you are, or where you want to go, and what you want to be, or who are you, who do you want people to refer you as being, then from a mental health perspective, that is pretty horrible. And it's gaining momentum as you indicated, it's gaining a lot of momentum, which causes a lot of conflict and trouble, not only just in the community, but it's causing a lot of problems in our homes, where, especially with the new generation, because the new generation don't know who they are. And social media is telling them who they are.
Well, they should be. Mm-hmm.
and, and they're not, and they're picking and choosing relative to what they want to believe is not what they're being taught to believe. And so it is a major problem. And I see it because I work at Epworth Hospital in South Bend. And that's one of the issues that we are dealing with. And we're not sure as to how to address it and what to do and how to interfere with family structures and what to say and it's leading to suicide. As a matter of fact, if you're talking about that, it's leading to a lot of suicide ideations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really causing a lot of conflict in schools. it is really it's worse than what people would think. And we would think that churches, et cetera, and so forth, those kind of things would help, but it isn't. It really isn't helping. Uh,
Mhm.
churches have their own idea as to what to do, what to believe, and who to believe, and so that's very it's conflicting with what their kids are learning relative to social media, relative to what the the world is moving towards. You know, this world is transitioning.
Mhm.
It's transitioning to different. It's not the same as it used to be. So the people who are older are saying, "Well, we got to go back to the old days," but the old days are gone. The
Yeah,
old days are gone.
I think a new day is best. Not the old days, not the nowadays, but the new day. Thank you, Sadika. Right quick, what do you think? Because I really do want to get into the suicide more into that, since that's what we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it's the same thing with AI, you know,
Mhm.
anything can be balanced and fair as long as there's like some guidelines, some guardrails around it, you know. If it's used to maim, defraud, you know, hurt people, trick people, etc., then I think that it could be, you know, then that of course is bad in that case, right? But if it's a way for you to one save time, like I use filters too because I don't like put on makeup either. I'm a mother of four, okay? I don't have time for all that. But also, you know, it's a way to be creative. It's a way to manifest. It's a way to see yourself differently. You can, like, for me, I am going to be a multi-billionaire, y'all, and so I use
Ooh,
when I create my avatars. I like the ones that I have. One idea I have is when I get the money I want, I'm gonna have my own clothing line and I'm gonna go back to all those avatars. I'm gonna have all those outfits made with my head dresses, and I'm going to actually dress in that. So for me, it's like it's a creative tool. And so I believe that it can be used in that way as well. And you know, in terms of imagination and bringing, you know, creativity to it. So I think it's like with everything else where if it can be used, you know, in a bad way if it isn't regulated or if, you know, if there's not guardrails up.
Right. Okay, King, you got a thought, King BJ?
Yeah, I look at it like this. I don't know too much about the filters and things like that because I never use those things. But I will say this: she, Miss Doaz asked earlier, was it a self-esteem thing? Hmm. So you, some people it can be, and some people it's like they just doing things right to waste time, I guess. Because a lot of these things we're getting are not even from us. Because like like you said earlier, well, the guy that was on earlier, the drummer, he made a point about they want to be the artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they start seeing the artists with the nails, the long nails, makeup, eyelashes, um, even go so far as the BBLs and all this other the weirdo stuff they doing, right? Tummy
Mm-hmm.
tucks or liposuctions or whatever they doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have people that literally will go that far. It starts to me with the filters, but it can get as far as where you will try some unnatural procedure where you may even take yourself out. That's not even approved.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be careful when we um that's we get into these things because if you're not careful, you become what's that thing? What's that movie? Frankenstein. That's it. The movie Frankenstein. And then remember, Frankenstein was not the monster. It was the
Right.
doctor.
Yeah.
It was the doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to remember that you will self-destruct trying to be something you're not. And as a matter of fact, I've seen that happen with a lot of people I know as well. So I mean, I get into all the health benefits or non-benefits of it.
Mhm.
We just have to know that when we try to put filters on and do things of that nature, if you're not careful, you do become a product of a artificial intelligence operation.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. If you're just doing it, for fun and you understand, the boundaries, then that's your choice. But if you're starting to fantasize about this is the way you need to look and you can't afford to go do it, and I can't live because I don't want people to see my real face because you don't accept yourself for who you are, then we got problems. Doe Eyes, you said you had another question.
Yes. And Graham does it every time. I start it right here. And I want you all's perspective on this. Most people don't want to listen to a person unless the person is nice looking. Graham. I mean that's how you feel, and again, I don't expect everyone to agree with everything someone says. We're all individuals and we all have our feelings, but if there are a lot of people that feel that way, then
Yeah, I don't think he's saying that. I think he's saying that the masses tend to only look at people that look a certain way. That's why the stars are 100 pounds, and that's why everybody looks so quote unquote perfect and blah 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 blah. And there's no there wasn't a lot of, for a long time, different types of people, because there's all different kind of pretty people, right? So I think that's what he was saying. I don't think he was saying that as a fact. I think he was saying that is how people work. Oftentimes I know from myself, I never know when I post my stuff how people are going to respond. I have never cared. You know what I'm saying? I'm sharing what I feel because I feel like I should, and those that receive it do, and those that don't. Right? So I might, on a particular day, I might only have 5 people respond to my stuff. On another day, I might have 500 people respond to my stuff. But I have noticed Mhm. I have noticed that if I'm dressed up, if my hair is long and luxurious, and if my face is pow, I'm gonna get a few thousand hits because people are drawn visually. They care about what they see. And most of those people, especially the half that are men, don't give a crap what's coming out my mouth. They just care about what they're seeing. They don't. I even did a whole thing on it. I talked about it before. I was scolding them, saying I am more than my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even hear that. They said, "Ooh, Cynda, your body is banging." They didn't even hear the words I said.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are visually motivated. And it used to be pretty much, well, just men, but now women are too. Women are visually motivated. So it's it's an issue. It's an issue for sure. But let's get into this. Was that the question, Doe Eyes, or did you have something else you want to ask?
nope, that was it.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Thank you all.
So that can take us into oh, I'm sorry, I keep saying it. What do you say?
It's okay.
Taking our lives. When people take their lives, we have to be thoughtful of Doe Eye's platform. I am sorry, I've said it a couple of times because I'm
It's
not used
okay.
to
It's
the.
easy to do that. So no
Yeah,
worries.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I've heard like people say unalive themselves. I've heard that a lot. Taking one's life. They flag platforms that use certain language. So it is an epidemic. It is an epidemic right now. Um, I've only met a few people in my life who said they've never thought about it. I've only met a few that said that, and I was like, "Dang, on, what kind of life did you have? Congratulations," because because it's something that I have fought in myself for years, for my life. And it might be because one of my earliest memories of is watching someone attempt to, someone that I cared about. And that was very extremely important to me. One of my first memories of life is watching someone try to take their life. And so it's real. And it seems like in a way that people are less afraid of of not being alive. They're less afraid of not being alive. They're less afraid of consequences. Because they don't have belief systems. People used to be afraid of unaliving themselves because of what might happen to them in the good place or the bad place, right? That's what used,
Yeah.
but people don't have those fears anymore because they're not raised that way. Many people are not raised that way anymore. And I have my own thoughts about that. This show's not about that, but I believe that your belief system affects those kind of decisions. And and you can't tell me that some of the people that have passed on didn't love their families. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, for me, my thing was I could never do that because I love my family too much. I would never do that to them. That has kept me going. I would never do that to my daughter. I would never do that to my family. But some people feel like they don't have a family that matters or cares.
Right.
They don't have anybody that cares if they're here or not. And it seems like that feeling in people is an epidemic right now, which is moving toward people towards doing that to themselves more than ever. The statistics are crazy. James, you would know about that more than I do. What are some of the things that you see in your work when it comes to that?
But one of the newer things that we are seeing is murder by police. I mean, suicide by police. Have you ever heard of that?
Unaliving by police.
I'm sorry.
We can't see the S word. Unaliving by police.
Okay.
Hmm.
Unaliving by police. That's what
Hmm.
they do. That's what, not they, that's what young people are beginning to do because they are disgruntled and they don't want to live, etc. and so forth. There's a lot of reasons why, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is to identify why they have taken this as a recourse, as a course of action. And a lot of them are doing it because they could do it easy. It's not
Mm.
a difficult thing to do.
Mm.
As many drugs there is out there, and when I said, what did you call it? It wasn't suicide. The other
Uh,
thing,
unaliving.
unliving,
Hmm.
unliving by police. Have you ever
Hmm.
heard of it? Do you know anything about it?
Oh, been hearing about it.
Have
Hmm.
you? Hmm.
Hmm.
I've had maybe five in my career as a therapist, and one was really particularly interesting to me because I had him as a client for a brief term, about a month or so, and we wasn't getting very far in the therapy. However, and he was on his meds and everything, but he just come to a point where he just said, "I just don't want to do it anymore." And when a person generally says that, like he said it, they're mortally serious about it. And what he did was he just took off all of his clothes. He was an upper middle class young Caucasian boy. And he took off all his clothes and he ran down the street and locked himself inside um, uh, a room and dared them to do something about it. And it was his father was a social service person, and his father was the one who called me and said, this guy, I can't give his name, is trying to kill himself. And of course, they call the police and everything. And so we come to the conclusion as to what to do and how to do and why. Why was because of his identification. He didn't feel like he was relative to anybody or anything. And then he was dealing with PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome, anyway. And so he wanted to just die. And he didn't want to be a burden on his father. His father was relatively big in social services, et cetera, and so forth, and all those kind of things. However, after we retrieved him and got him to talking again, and he broke down, but he really wanted the police to shoot him, and he did the things that automatically, because of the system, police officers are afraid of people like that. They're afraid of people like that. People who just said, I just don't want to live and I'll do anything. And we retrieved him and he was taken care of. I had a chance to talk to him and counsel with him, but that's not the point. The point is that we're finding it more and more in teenagers, in high school students, and first level, maybe even middle school. These kids are not having any kind of source of holding them up in regards to who they are as individuals. You would think that the church would do it, but the church is not a good avenue of helping people who are going through mental health crises. Mental health is probably the biggest crisis in this whole, I would say country, but I won't say the whole world. It's the world. Mental health issues is that tough. And suicide is an option that a lot of young people are taking. And you may not know it because they don't advertise it like that on TV or social media. They advertise it a different kind of way in order to keep people unaware of what's happening because the kids are involved in it. So that is really, really huge. And then lastly, trauma. People don't understand what trauma is, as people don't understand what depression is. And we use depression as a common term relative to not feeling well, or I don't want to do this, or I feel bad. It's depression is much bigger than anything that you all can even imagine. And it's not as simplistic as they act like it is. It is not. It is one of the major traumas in psychological service, depression. And so if one say, I am depressed, and then you need to check that person out and find out the whys and the wherefores. A lot of it is borderline personality disorder. Those are things that people don't even know anything about. But we're finding out that trauma and borderline personality disorder is really taking a hold on young people relative to them saving their lives. I won't use the other term.
Mm.
And so I'm
Wow.
here. Yeah. So yeah.
So I'm finding that to be true. I mean, I can't count the people I know that have
Hmm.
done that. Uh Sadaka, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we're at a really critical point in time where it seems like um, things are kind of breaking down, the systems that have been in place, and the structures of working that 9 to 5, like what we grew up used to, it doesn't really exist anymore. And so a lot of the kids are just wondering what their purpose is here in life, period.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, where's their role? What does their future look like? When we're hearing about you go to school, you go to college, and then what? You end up working a nowhere job, and there's no real future for, at least to a lot of these kids. And they're like, why would I work so hard just to dead end? And with the increasing cost of education, especially with college and higher education, they're looking like, well, there's no point in me even trying because I can't even afford it. And then if I do, I'll become a debt slave. And so, in addition to what Uncle King has already said in terms of the trauma and those other factors, there's that too, which is what's my future? How do I fit in? How can I make my mark? And how can I do the things that I actually enjoy? Because I work with a lot of millennials, I work with Gen Z, and that is like, that is what drives them to feel a purpose, to feel like they're valued, to feel like they're appreciated. And if they don't feel that, then they're not going to stick around. They'll just leave on you real quick. They're not like, Gen X or boomers, or they will dip on you if they're not feeling valued, and they're not going to get mistreated. They're not going to stand for that. So I feel like they're rebelling very much,
Hmm.
just overall, to everything. And they see that things are broken. They see that our story, right? Our story as humanity is broken right now, and they don't want to fall in line. And so I feel like that's, in addition to the trauma, in addition to all the bad things that are happening with drugs and violence, as well as the things that are happening in the home, our lack of really understanding how to love and care for each other, our lack of ability to be honest with ourselves,
Hmm.
lack of ability to be creative because we have no time to be creative because we're always worrying about money and we're always working. All of this is creating dysfunction that is then bleeding into our kids because they're not getting nourished, they're not getting water the way that they need. So it really is, I feel like, as a people, especially America, because I really do feel like we're a big play right now. A lot of times we think that it's just the world is dysfunctional. Well, no, I think it might just be us. I mean, there's trouble happening in other nations, but the US is really, really, really not doing well right now, like at all. So
I
I think
agree.
the American people need to decide, how do we want to be different? And then we need to start moving toward that. What is our story and how are we going to move forward? Because if we don't do that soon, things will collapse, into themselves, and then something new will rise from that, right? COVID showed us that. COVID showed us when things fall apart and when things come to a standstill, all new things come from it. That's the one thing that COVID did show us. And so the question is, how much do we want to fall? And are we willing to take the risk for ourselves and our family?
Yeah, how far are we going to fall? So, what do you think, King BJ?
I think that when you're dealing with subjects like we've been talking about, as far as unalive, as you say, right? I mean, I witnessed firsthand last year one of my own friends that, you know, I guess died, whatever, right? And suicide at 33 years old. So, right? So I look at it as far as it's a sad thing, but something was missing inside of them. And a lot of us are not grounded in universe, nature things. You go look at children from, I don't know, 20 years ago, myself included. We went outside and played. We did a lot of things outside. A lot of children now are doing more things inside, right? It's almost like you're in your box. When you're outside, you got to play with the birds, the bees. I mean, the dogs, the cats. I mean, every now and then I go to Petco myself just to, look at it. I go to the zoo every now and then, go look at a meerkat or a baboon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Fish, you want to say. You know, it's mighty funny. The other day they had playing a football game and they talked about the guy for the
Mhm.
Chiefs got a pet alligator, and now Peter wants to put an allegation together, right? But my thing is, people have always had things. Animals, creatures, nature always brought you stuff. And now with antidepressants, things that people use, psychotics, psychedelics, whatever, the rate of unaliving yourself goes up because you're not grounded in the universe and your frequency is off. I
Mhm.
mean, we go to women and with birth control or pharmaceutical over the counter prescriptions, abuse, whatever, fentanyl. But when it comes to unaliving yourself, as you say, um, that's something that will miss inside of you that makes you do that. And that's one thing that's not being talked about, but it's happening more and more. And it's also because people are, I'm not going to use the word possessed, but I'm going to use the word more like they are not grounded, but somebody or something in their mind told them that's okay. So when you ever feel them inadequacy, sometimes that's what you do,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, coming from my own background, like I said, it was stuff I witnessed. I witnessed, depression firsthand, unaliving itself, attempts firsthand, and then dealing with my own depression. I was very depressed for a long, long time,
Mhm.
from childhood up until I feel like by my late 20s I was starting to wake up, out of this place where I was in my life, because even though I was working, mobile, all that stuff, I was not a happy person. Because what depression, there's all kind of explanations and definitions, but for me, what it was I learned very early on how not to feel. I didn't want to feel anything, so I pressed
Mhm.
my emotions down. I pressed feelings down. I'll never forget one time my father taught me how to not feel something. My father would tickle me, and I hated it because he was relentless. So he said to me one time, he was like, "You want to know how not to do that?" I said, "Yeah, how?" He said, "Imagine that your body is a piece of wood." And so I started doing that and it worked. I stopped being ticklish. But then I lost the joy of laughing. And
Mhm.
in order to avoid exactly, Erica, comfortably numb, in order to avoid being hurt as I had been over and over again for, I believe, spiritual reasons, so I could talk to you here today, I pressed all my feelings down.
Mhm.
I'll never forget one of the first times I went to therapy, and they showed me emojis before there were emojis. Right? Before there were emojis, they had emojis in therapist's office. And
Mhm.
she showed me all these emojis and said, "Have you ever felt this?" I said, "No." "Have you ever felt this?" I said, "No." On and on and on and on, because I didn't allow myself to feel, because feeling made me hurt.
Mhm.
But at the same time, because I stopped feeling that, I also stopped feeling joy, also stopped seeing colors. I just didn't feel anything. I would get a roll, when I got Mo Better Blue, say, everybody was like, "Oh my God, that's so awesome." I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." I didn't feel it. I didn't feel anything. So when you're numb,
Yeah.
and then add to that, you don't believe in anything, you have no reverence for life, you have no reverence for death, you don't have any reverence for anyone, let alone yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is when those options become ever more interesting for people. And it's epidemic, I think, because like Sadaka said, I think, I'm not sure who said it, it's so easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to do these days. The opportunities to grab a gun from the your unlocked lockbox, or take fentanyl, or any number of things, make it very easy to do.
Yeah.
And when people are a certain age, especially the younger people, it takes, they say your brain doesn't really it always changes. You're constantly your brain can constantly change till death. It's constant, right? But the actual formation of your brain doesn't really stop till 27 years old. So if your brain if your brain is still forming and you're taking drugs and you're drinking and you're doing all these things, you're messing up what's supposed to be growing. So that's another level of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
oh God, stop it, Graham. Stop it. or or like Sadaka said, deactivated heart chakra. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. So okay, solutions. Solutions. James, what do you think?
Loneliness is a big one.
Mhm.
And it's not, a lot of times, it's not just wanting someone, it is being able to connect to someone. And that person doesn't necessarily have to understand all that you're going through, because that's almost impossible anyway. But loneliness is really huge in understanding what one is going through from a mental health perspective. Really huge. To feel alone, regardless of the situation, to feel alone or isolated, to feel isolated from it. Cindy was alone, isolated within herself, and there wasn't a reference point. Of course, we all love Cindy, and she probably had friends, born friends, but that's not the point. People do not respond to others who are lonely. So what you have here are lonely people and people that don't automatically respond to it because they're afraid of it. And so what do? They separate themselves from those who are lonely. And when that happens, you isolate this human being who is bored to touch, feel, be with, understand, etc., and so forth, another human being. And it's not fully actualized. And when it's not actualized, we go into ourselves. We go into our caves and our caverns, and we find answers that may not be to our best advantage a lot of times. And it provides a space for a mental health ideation. Borderline is really huge relative to loneliness. You can check out cutting. When I have a cutter as a client, then I know that it's probably borderline. It could be a host of things. Schizoaffective It could be schizoaffective, schizophrenia mixed with other things as well. And I don't want to go through all those terminology things. People don't know what that is all about. But loneliness is very, very, very huge. Nobody wants to respond to a person, consciously or subconsciously, who is alone or who gives off the aura of being alone. And so what you have here are people that's we can call it going through hell. I don't know if that's improper to say, but I said it anyway. They are going through a hellish kind of situation. They can't pull their own selves. They can't pull themselves out of it. And no one is offering some legitimate care and concern. Legitimate. I'm not talking about for money or position or just to be nice. Legitimate concern. And you don't have to be like Christian or non-Christian. It's not about that. It's about touching and feeling another human being. And sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You just have to be there. Sometimes you don't have to use the words. But if that person knows that the other person cares for what I'm going through. Yeah.
I had recent. I'll just make this quick because I want to hear from King and Sadaka. But I just this last week. I don't know why I draw people to me with mental health issues, but I do. I always have. Maybe because they can sense in me a brother, or, a sister. I've been there. And this person that I did not know that had been following me for a while on another platform. One morning I woke up and I had like tons of messages from this person. They had tried to call me. They had tried to video call me. They had done all, and I don't answer those because if I don't know you, I'm not going to answer those.
Right.
And then he started typing. He was screaming, pleading for help. He was in a horrible situation. He had lost his job. He was homeless. He had a child. He didn't know what to do. His family had turned their backs on him. And of course, I only know what he's telling me, but he reaches out to me, a total stranger. But to him, he doesn't consider me as strangers because he's been watching my stuff for years. He's been seeing my movies. He's been watching my content. And he thinks if anybody can understand me, she can. And that's where I had to make a decision because I keep boundaries, but I had to make a decision. Okay, what is my spirit telling me? And my spirit told me, help this guy.
There you go.
So I did, and the only way that I could was to encourage him. Only way that I could was I just leaving him messages, and I was stern with him. I didn't kiss his butt, but I was very stern with him. I told him some things that had happened to me. I shared my walk, and I told him that he was going to survive, that this was a temporary problem, that he was going to get through. And he did get to the unaliving part. He was talking about that very seriously, I think. And I was like, you are the richest man in the world. You don't have a car, you don't have a home, but you have a son. You are more wealthy than any billionaire. You have a son that loves you and that you love.
Yeah.
That is the reason why. And these conversations encouraged him, and eventually he was able to raise the money to get his car back. And now he's got his job back and movement is happening. So that solution that you just mentioned, which was be there for somebody. That's the layman's terms.
Yeah.
Be there for people because loneliness is a problem. The whole social media thing, there's no connection. You might be talking to some quote unquote friends or whatever, but you don't really know anybody because nobody's fully telling the truth about who they are.
Right.
And so there's no true connection. And so it's deceiving and it's insidious because you think you got 5,000 friends, but not one of them know anything about you and you don't know anything about them. And so actually being available for people that you know, when people, I had to train myself to do this because I can get an attitude if somebody's nasty, right? But I always go to, why are they nasty? Why are they being mean? There might be something else going on here that I don't understand or know anything about. Do I deserve this behavior? No, but I don't know what's going on in their life. So I've made it a habit to, if someone seems to be off kilter and they're mean to me or whatever, I say, are you okay? Is everything okay in your life? And you
Right.
don't know how many times I've had people break down bawling.
Mhm.
No, it's not. And then they'll tell me their whole life story and they feel better because they don't feel lonely anymore because they shared their story with someone. They connected with someone. That's a great and honest answer that we need to figure out how to implement in our communities. Sadako, what do you think?
I think that it starts with yourself. Most people don't even know themselves. Most people are not comfortable with themselves. That loneliness that you talk about is because they're not grounded with themselves. If you get to know yourself and you give yourself space and you're really honest with yourself about how you're feeling, what you would like to do, how to navigate through the troubles of life, then that is your primary starting point. And
Mhm.
then you can worry about everyone else. And then when you, and you know, regardless of whatever individuals religions are, I am a true believer in God, source, whatever you want to call the creator of all creators. Having that connection to yourself can then lead to having a connection with your higher self, which is bringing you closer to Christ consciousness and the connection of God, and following your intuition that will guide and navigate you. And there is no greater love than the love for yourself and the love that God has for you. And if we don't have that grounded in us, then everything else is very hard to flow, because instead of us being the sun and everything else orbiting around us and us creating a life as God intended us to, we allow everything else to tell us who we should be, which is very confusing because it's always changing. It's always, you know, if you're watching the media, if you're watching social media, if you're taking other people's opinion, you're allowing them to create their own life, then you don't have a sense of anything for yourself. And you'll always be chasing behind someone else, which I think is one of the biggest things that are contributing to mental health, is that we are not focused on improving ourselves. We are not focused on committing to create a life of happiness for ourselves. And without that solid foundation, we can't possibly, you know, live a life that you know we would fulfill us, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
while I agree with that 100%, personal experience tells me, answers that you can't know yourself because you're lost sometimes. You are so depressed that you can't find yourself, and it takes someone else to help guide you to yourself. That
Yes.
is the problem, the lack of connection. I can't love me if I am numb, and I won't talk to myself. I can't even get to me unless I have King James take my hand and help me to music. So that helps me open up and find an outlet. And then finally I can start finding myself. You
Mhm.
see what I'm
I
saying?
call that contrast, but I still stand
Mhm.
with starts with you. But
Yeah,
the like
but if you
people
can't
who,
get to you, if you can't get to you, sometimes I believe that source gives you a guide to get to you.
definitely,
You know what I mean?
definitely they're
That's
they're
when, if you don't figure you out, you're not going to figure it out, right? But
right.
sometimes you help figuring you out. You
Yes,
know,
absolutely. You need people to be in your lives. You need situations that put you in uncomfortable situations so that you can see yourself. The whole point of people and the connections that you, and I agree with you, is that so you can see yourself. so that things will prompt you to make you even understand that you need to be healed in the first place if we don't have those connections. And I think that's another reason why these youth are having so much issue. They don't have those mirrors, and everything is handed to them. It's an overflow of options and opportunities, so I agree with you though, but I do believe that in order to really improve mental health, we have to focus on spirituality and our connection to ourself and our connection to God. And then we can focus on the people around us, because relationships are everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So King BJ, we are almost to the end, and I want everybody to tell how everyone can contact them. But before we do, we want you to have the last word on this. What do you think, sir?
Well, you're talking about the solutions.
Yes.
Man, one solution,
Mm-hmm.
loving yourself, but that's got to be taught from the people that's close to you. And unfortunately, in the day in society, the person next to you may not love themselves just like you don't, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, getting back to nature, knowing what's real and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Studying who you are for one thing, and knowing that you got to have some sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody put in the chat earlier, numb. But people are really numb right now. And there's an old saying: it's hard to lead people in the right direction, but it's easy to lead them in the wrong. And it's
Mm-hmm.
actually very easy, like I said, what they see in society. I think you said something about in class or something. You see one more booty cheek out or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's ask a question. When you are teaching, do you realize that if it's in high school, do you realize that a lot of the young women that's going to teenage girls is going to school look like adults already?
Absolutely. That's
Some
the
of them
problem
some of them already have tattoos already. What?
already.
You get that already? Ain't 14 years old. You had to be approved by somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you did, but then maybe you didn't. Um, so if you already have that, and as a matter of fact, that was another thing with the filters that I meant to mention earlier. Some of it ain't filters. Some of these women do have about, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
about 30 tattoos, and so do the men, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but but we but but we have to know that it starts with love, self worth, and you don't have to be, glorified, I don't know, cartoon character or something to be loved. You can be loved from witself and within.
Amen. That's right. Thank you so much. That was a great final word. Thank you, King. Um, King James, can you please tell everybody if they want to reach out to you,
Yeah.
check out some of your works, where can they find you?
They can find me just, I don't want to do the professional thing because
Mm-hmm.
that's just too many people. So, but you can, if you want to contact me, just go to Facebook, James Wesley Williams, on Facebook.
All right, cool.
Uh,
The Most High God, Saudi Rose, how can they find you?
Thank you. I'm on YouTube. It's at TMH Baby Girl. I'm also on TikTok. It's at Sodi, SODI Rose, all one word. And I'm also on Instagram, and it's La Leona Bonita. LALEONA Thank you. I have a
All
nice.
right, y'all. Y'all need to check her out. She gives these talks that really
yeah,
her
very
words
good
are
too.
very, very helpful. And King BJ, how could they find you, sir?
You can find me at Bernard1121 Instagram, Bernard Johnson Facebook, King BJ Johnson on YouTube, and I think she put my cash up in chat earlier. 1919 BJ. I also got a it's kingbjfitness.com, kingbjfitness32 on Instagram. So we just have a lot. Like I said, just that's about it. I just want to say I'm glad to be on here, and thanks for everybody for the open discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Thank you,
brother.
Doe Eyes, for the platform and everybody that was listening in. If you guys don't already follow me, you can follow me at Cynda Will on Instagram, at Cynda Williams 615 on TikTok, at Cynda Williams, or at Cynda Will on Facebook. I do my little walk and talks all every week, so y'all check it out. Plus, I got an Instagram live show tomorrow night. But anyway, thank you again, everybody.
Thank
All
you
right.
all
Love
so,
you guys
so
so
very
much.
Love you
much.
too. Wonderful job, each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Good
You're
night,
welcome.
everyone.
Touch somebody.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night. Good night.
Night.
Good night, sir. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, everyone. That
Good
was
night.
good night. That was episode 2 of Conversations with Cynda, Family, and Friends, where we spoke about back to school and mental health. Stay tuned for next month when we will be talking about the election and why some men appear to hate women. So thank you all so very much for tuning in, and those who may catch the replay. Thank you to those who have sent blessings. May they be returned abundantly as well. And most importantly, thank you for continuing to keep this a safe platform without trolls that will inundate and disrupt, and respecting the host and all of the panel members. Everyone is truly appreciated. So with that, I am going to close this stream and wish you all a very safe, pleasant, and peaceful night. I'm going to obtain all of that information and put it in the description if you would like to reach out to anyone that you saw on the panel this evening. Everyone, good night.